For the rear body mount, it'll be just a pressure fit. We're going to design a bracket back here with our rear bumper, then we're going to notch the body, and it's going to rest onto the brass rod that we're going to use. It's a pretty good system. We've used it in the past. So we can use different sizes for our bumpers and our Nerf bars, but I'm going to go with 5161. I think that's a good start. The 3/64 brass rod. Easy to bend and work with. So to determine where we're going to bend the rod, well, that depends on where you're going to mount it. So with our design at first, I thought it was going to go on the inside of the bracket and then solder a mount to the inside of the tube flush, but I bent a couple of pieces, just didn't like the look of it, and then I decided, hey, why not use our frame rail, and put the rod inside there, and it'll help add strength and make it easy for me to adjust back and forth. So got in here, just marked it a little bit, and made my cut and my bend. Now you can see right here that I made it a little bit narrow, and I mounted this anyway to show you, don't worry about it being so critical. If you're a little off with your bends, again, that's fine. Imperfection is perfection, especially with these whole modifieds. So don't worry about it. And you know what, worst case scenario, that's all part of scratch building. If you have to sacrifice a few pieces of brass, which I have in my lifetime, then that's what it's going to take until you get the design that you want. Creating the bends with this rod is really easy. It's just so nice to work with. Just the good pliers right here. Just watch your mark right there and bring it forward. And just like that. Doesn't take a whole lot at all. Like I said, very easy to work with. To find out the distance that you need, that's why you leave that a little bit long, and you slip it inside, move it back and forth, put your body on, and just test fit it. Again, this is why I like working with the brass, and especially 3/64 smaller rod like this, because it's easy to bend. You can just bend it by hand. If you have to adjust it, pull it back out and bend it again using some pliers, and you'll just find that sweet spot. So to notch the body, you don't want to use a Dremel or anything. I mean, you can, just have to be careful. But I like using this. These little tip cleaners for your torch, they're basically just mini round files, and you can go in there and really do some nice small detail work. And if you don't have one of those or another file, your Dremel disc, yeah, it comes in handy. You can just use this by hand, put it in there, and just rub it across the body, and you'll have them there in no time. And there we have it, just test fitting the body on there. Just enough material for us to attach our bumper to. So we're going to fabricate that next, but looking good. So for the rest of the rear bumper design, you guessed it, I'm going to stick with the 8150 3/32 brass tube, just like we used for the frame rails. So for the design that I have in my head, I know, that's dangerous. I'm going to do kind of a wraparound effect here. Nothing too elaborate, but again, I want to make sure that I don't cut this too short. So I'm going to go right around 2.5, make my mark here, and we'll give it a cut. So to make it even on each side, right around 3/8 from each end, and that is where we're going to make our cuts. My preferred tool to get things started, the good old X-Acto razor saw. Just the thickness of the blade is going to be enough to get us started, and it's pretty easy to work with. So you just go right over your line there where you've marked and just draw it towards you. Now, you're only going to need a few passes. This is going to go through the brass pretty quickly, and you want to leave the back edge here. Now you can see we can bend that up and we can get a slight angle. If the angle isn't enough, that's fine. You can try some sandpaper. That's my kind of go-to, is just to get the sandpaper in there and bring it back and forth, and that way you can lightly sand the material without going too far. Just get a little bit to where you can increase that angle just a bit. So now I'm going to check that against the car, and if I need to, I'll just sand some more. So another tool to increase this distance, good old-fashioned triangle file in the needle file size. When you get these files, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money, but I prefer the ones that already have the handles preformed on there. Just makes them easier to work with. Anyhow, get right in there in your cut line and just start working back and forth. But again, don't go too far. You can go right through this press pretty easy. So, there we go. Now we've really widened that up. We'll bring this up. Oh yeah, we've increased that distance. So, now, before we go too far, you guessed it, let's go test fit it. So this looks good to me. If it doesn't, you guessed it, put it back up there, remove more material, and increase the bend. Now, of course, you can't keep flexing this, you will break it. If you do, you can start over, or you can set this up on a flat piece of material and just solder it by hand. And we are going to fill this with solder anyhow, just to increase the strength, but we'll get to that later. But the only way you can do this is just test fit, see as you go. That's just the way the design process is until you get that look that you want. And I think we're there. So now I'm going to do the other side. And back to that design process and test fitting, I noticed that putting this up here, that the original mark I had over here, just a little bit too wide to me. I want to bring it in. And again, this is all part of the design process, testing as you go. So I've made a new cut line there. Now, will it make this side longer and uneven to the other? Of course it will. But what have we said? Right, it's easier to take away than it is to add to. So I'll go ahead and make this cut, then we can sand and file this side to match the other. Just fine. Just about right. Yeah, let's test fit. Yeah, that looks pretty good, but these outside edges here and here are a little long, so I'm going to clean those up. I think it'll match the rear end here just fine. So I've measured each side and made some new cut lines. I'm going to trim this off, and then I can adjust the angle with a file. So the answer to the questions I have is yes, we have power tools, and yes, we use them for some of the work. So if some of this is a little tedious and you want to speed things up, well, this will get the job done. Good old-fashioned Harbor Freight. No, it's not top shelf quality, but it's not top shelf price either. And my budget sure appreciates it. It's only been here for 10 plus years, and I don't know how many slot cars, that it's helped fabricate. You just have to be careful, just practice good shop safety, and above all, remember that these belts will go through this material very quickly. So just a little bit goes a long way, and check your work. Goes through there pretty quick. I think that's right where we want it to be, and now we can use a hand file and finish it out. So yes, when you're doing work like that, you can get some flash material inside. You can just use just about anything to clean it out. This is just a good brad nail. Get it in there. It's so little material, it doesn't take very much at all to clean it up. So although we're using a 3/64 rod like we've been using, again, I want to use something smaller for the pilot hole, and then we can enlarge it using the standard drill bit. We don't have a lot of room to work with here, and I want to make sure that we have the holes right where we want them to be. So there's the mark. You can start with a very small drill bit, in this case 1/32. We can get right here, we can go over the work. Just take your time, and with just a little bit of pressure you can get started, and you can start a pilot hole. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is just to use a punch, a nice sharp center punch. Get it over your work. You just have to be careful, and you have to make sure it's in the right spot, and you don't want to go too hard, because again, you'll go right through this brass and you'll pinch it sometimes. So just give it a tap, there you go. You're on point there, and you can do it again. So there you see, we've just about got things started. Now we can come back, we can grab our other drill bit, the 3/64. We can make the proper size hole. We've got it right where we want it to be, and yes, just hand drill, a little bit of pressure, and you'll get right through it. And as you're drilling, just light pressure until you make it through. You don't want to go through the bottom. You can just feel it go through that top layer of material. So pull it out. There you go. Just have a piece of rod here just to show you that. Oh yeah, gonna work just fine. Yeah, I like the look of that. Just test fit as you go and get that height just where you want it to be. But yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Alright, easy enough to get things mounted. I just put it up here, got the angle that I wanted, held it in place with a needle nose pliers, and I suspended the chassis using the helping hands. You guys have seen those things before. They really do come in handy. Get it? Yeah, anyway. I got that mounted, just float a little bit of solder. We are good to go. And there we have it. I think it looks pretty good to me. Yeah, we'll have to lower it just a little bit, but we'll get that sweet spot easily enough done with this rod, just very flexible, as we've already shown. We could just adjust that, not a problem. So yeah, well, it took us a little bit to get here, but that's just the nature of the video. Anyway, hope it helps you guys out there, and as always, I look forward to hearing from you online.